Hello and welcome to the Brass Ringers podcast. That was a very official way of doing it this time. I already messed it up. Dan, I said just before we went live, I'm not going to mess this up, and I've messed it up. I'm joined today.
The immediate analysis as well. It's like, here's my performance of the intro. Here's my analysis of it that I'm offering.
I think there's a psychologist out there who would love to have a chat with me about my anxieties and personal issues with myself, apparently. I'm joined by Dan. Dan, how are you, sir?
Pretty good. It's WrestleMania NXT week. We have a full week of wrestling ahead of us. I still haven't seen any NXT. I'm going to watch that after this stream. I'm excited for the whole week of wrestling ahead of us. I'm excited for fans back in a wrestling stadium, so I'm feeling pretty good.
We should probably say now. So I've watched one NXT so far. I'm feeling good. Excited for what's left to come this week, and we are going to be doing quite a bit of content. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing a stream breaking down NXT's Night 1 and 2. Then on Sunday, we're going to break down WrestleMania Night 1, and Monday, break down WrestleMania Night 2. So lots coming up this week between podcasting and watching wrestling and sleeping. There's just going to be no time for anything else, quite frankly, and I love it.
Right.
So but today we're not talking about WrestleMania. We'll dip our toe in a little bit later. Today we are talking about Savio Vega. Dan, how familiar are you with Savio Vega?
Not overly familiar. Several times in my life, the first of which being with you, I've watched like a marathon of every Royal Rumble. And one of the cool things about watching those Royal Rumbles is that you see these guys like crop up time and time again in various forms and incarnations. And I just remember the absurdity of seeing Kwang for the first time and thinking, who's this guy? What a load of nonsense. And then being like, oh, is that the same guy? And then it just keeping on going that way. And it became a bit of a sort of running joke between us. And so now I will just never forget the name Savio Vega. Having said that, never really seen any of his matches other than the Royal Rumble entrances. He
won us, I want to say, 3 shots at a Royal Rumble party with the best quiz name. What happens in Savio Vega stays in Savio Vega.
That, you know what? The thing about that is, it's a brilliant quiz name. Like, it's absolutely fantastic, but also so niche. We must have been in one of the only places in the world where a room full of people heard that quiz name and went, brilliant. I love it. Like, that was a very rare occurrence.
It was. It's it's so weird that, we've had this joke and we've seen him in Rumbles, and yet we've never got there. I remember we saw him in I think it was 94 and 95 Rumble as Kwang. And then, we roll around to 96 and we're waiting for him. And then this Savio Vega fellow rocks up, and I'm like, there's something about this man. Something about the way this man throws a crescent kick that I find him quite recognizable. And I remember our wonderful reaction when we discovered who Savio Vega was. But today, we're diving a bit further into Savio Vega. So let me start with a little bit about the man. Savio Vega started his career in wrestling in 87. Actually started as a security guard for WWC, which is the World Wrestling Council. He's saying not entirely sure because he forgot to put it in his notes, even though it was going to come up quite a bit. But I believe that's what it stands for. And that was over in Puerto Rico. So he starts off there. Then after high school, he moves over to Miami, does a tryout for the WWF, and gets signed. But I think it's one of those kind of back in the day where they sign you, but you're not quite ready. So what they did is they sent him back to Puerto Rico to WWC to keep working. Similar to how they've got OVW and places like, or used to have OVW and stuff like that as like developmental. He went back to WWC and wrestled under the name TNT. While there, he feuds with the likes of Carlos Colon, who we're going to talk about today, Mr. Pongo, which is the name I recognize, Abdullah the Butcher, and Giant Baba over in All Japan at the same time. And he also works for New Japan a few times during that time as well. Fast forward to 94, and we get the debut in the WWF of Kwang. Now, Kwang is not Puerto Rican. Kwang is supposed to be, or is billed from the Orient. Have you seen any of the hype packages for Kwang? They are wonderful. It says his name at the bottom and goes bong. And then he goes. Yeah, a lot of that.
I've seen him.
And then it goes.
Yeah.
Boing, and shows his name again. And that's it. That's the whole hype package. He had this for like a month leading up. Every Raw, it would be this. One of them, he kicks a wooden board. But otherwise, it's just this. He then debuts, wins a couple of matches, loses a lot of matches. I actually pulled up his cage match profile as Kwang because I was fascinated to from what I could see, he didn't win a lot. He was billed as like the big monster of the week, but then never actually had any success. So I wanted to see who did he beat in his career. So he debuts at the Wrestling Challenge beating a guy called Chris Avery. I've never heard of him. Then beats Rich Myers, Buck Quatermain, Scott Taylor. These are all names of just generic jobbers. Then he comes up against Aldo Montoya and loses, the Portuguese Man of War. Then we get a bunch of other jobber names. Then he loses to Adam Bomb. Bunch of jobber names, loses to The Undertaker. Bunch of jobber names, loses to Mabel. So the second anyone of name value goes against him, he loses. Yeah. The only person I could find that he actually beat was Tatanka. That was it. And he beat him once and he drew with him once. So not much luck under the Kwang banner, and is done with Kwang pretty soon, like a year later, and debuts as Savio Vega. Has a pretty decent run in the WWF. Feuds with the likes of, teams with Razor Ramon, then feuds with him. Goldust, very famously, that we'll talk about today, Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's a member of the Nation of Domination. Then he becomes a member of Los Boricuas. Boricuas? I don't know. And then he just kind of fades away as the Attitude Era really starts going into full gear. He kind of just fades away. And then wrestles all over the world ever since. Worked as an agent for TNA. He's worked as a trainer. Most recently, he's cropped up on MLW in New York. And the last we saw of him was Survivor Series. He showed up for The Undertaker's farewell retirement bit. So that's kind of a brief history of Savio Vega, and we're going to take it back now to 1990 in WWC. Match I've picked here is him as TNT versus Carlos Colon, who is the father of Carlito Colon, in case you didn't know. And this is a barbed wire match. Now, the reason why I picked this is because from the brief bit of research that I have done, I know that WWC was surprisingly hardcore. Like, it's a pretty intense company, like up there with ECW and if not more extreme than a lot of the stuff you saw coming out of Japan, like kind of on par with that. So I saw this match, saw it was on YouTube, and I was like, great. Let's check that out. And this is the most bootlegged version of this match, I think, that probably exists. I think it starts like 10 minutes in. So we jump straight into the action here. Dan, what was your kind of initial impressions when you first put this on?
Well, mate, as soon as I saw the words barbed wire match and I saw the thumbnail on YouTube, I was like, "Fuck Dale, fuck Dale." And I thought it was gonna be what I thought it was gonna be like one of these like death matches kind of thing. Um, so I was not gonna be. I was like, "Screw this guy."
You're welcome.
It's just not my. It's just not my kind of thing at all. Um, Having said that, this, it's so funny. You even got the little tracking thing at the beginning when the match starts, like, the whole like videotape thing. This is a real aesthetic, like this like VHS aesthetic. Like there's something about it, and the sound is what like sound. It's like like recorded underwater or something. Like the whole
Oh, and all
thing
you
is
can
just
hear
surreal.
is
It's like,
the Puerto Rican commentator. So you can barely hear anything
right.
in the ring. So I don't know what the crowd's reaction to most of this was.
No, they seem pretty. They don't seem that animated, but yeah, you can't really hear anything they're talking about. What are my thoughts on this match? Well, uh, there's one part in it that's just absolutely disgusting. There's one part where I guess Carlos Colon, his head is already open, like they've already bladed at the point the version of this match that we watch starts, and he puts his head on the barbed wire, but like because there's a big gash in his head, the barbed wire goes like into his head, like it's disgusting. Um, that's the most brutal part of the match. Part of the match. There's a lot of rest holds and things. I think we may have missed like a lot of the most brutal.
I think we
parts of
missed
it.
that initial, tease going
That
into
initial busted
yeah.
open. Yeah. But a few stray thoughts that I have. One, yeah, the crescent kick is crazy.
Yeah.
It's like a man that size shouldn't be able to do that. It looks cool. I love it, and
I've written in my notes here just
Two,
on that. I've written down Vega does a good bunch of kicks, crescent, drop, spinning, lovely stuff.
really good. Two, really weirdly apathetic referee.
I
Which is very amusing to watch. The referee's just sort of staring at it as if like he's on the night shift as a security guard or something, and he's over it and he wants to go home.
There's a great moment in this match where he's got Savio Vega like pushed right up against the barbed wire, and the ref kind of comes by and goes, "Oh look, it looks like it's in you there. That looks uncomfortable." All right, and then right at the end of the second the match ends, he's like this to the camera, like he cannot wait to get out of there. I love this ref.
Cannot wait. They were not paying him enough, clearly. Now let's talk about Savio Vega's head. Now, is he a particularly wrinkled man, or are all of those folds and things on and around the back of his head? Is that a result of excessive self-punishment?
Oh yes. So I don't know if you've seen anything else from Carlos Colon. He went into I saw him first. He went into the Hall of Fame, I want to say like 2013, 2014. And it was the first time I'd seen him. And that man has the forehead resembling the Grand Canyon. Like there's so many different bumps, and it's kind of, I know Devon's got that as well. A lot of the old ECW guys, and it's from doing all the blading and from the barbed wire. It's disgusting. And I think especially if you like Savio Vega, haven't got much hair to disguise a lot of that, it looks so gross. So gross.
Like it looks like a scrotum.
Yeah. But it's all just scar tissue. It's really unfortunate.
Oh god, it's awful. And I was thinking about this, like, and I was looking at that damage on his head, and I was looking at like Carlos Colon's open head, like, and I just thought, like, I think if I looked hard enough, I'd be able to see the dude's skull. And I thought, what must these guys be thinking when the match is over and they go backstage and they're sitting there in the dressing room and they look in the mirror, like, is it like a kind of like post masturbation regret? Like that's what I was imagining it as. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like they're just like, oh,
Yeah.
this. Why am I doing this? Do you know what I
Once
mean?
once that
That's
initial
like,
high's gone,
or
it's like, oh,
once the
my
high is
face.
gone, yeah, like not again. Like,
I don't
I
know.
don't know. That was my
Yeah,
thought.
it's deathmatch wrestling is one of those things that, or like proper hardcore wrestling is one of those things that I'm fascinated to know the mindset, because the people that I know that do it like love doing it, and I have always been fascinated in like why do they enjoy doing that? Is it the story that they can tell, or is it the pain, or is it like what is it there that makes it tick
I
for
can
them?
see I can see why it would be a high, that kind of
Oh,
extreme
absolutely.
violence, and a lot of what I've read about wrestlers talking about this kind of stuff is them saying they just in the moment they don't feel
Yeah,
that pain. They're on such a high, and that whatever they're doing, the blade or the barbed wire, whatever it is, they don't really
yeah.
feel it, and I can see why that might become addictive. Um, but I just wonder, like afterwards on the come down, if that affects
Mm,
you psychologically.
yeah. It's it'd be interesting to know if you're watching this and you are a
Yeah.
deathmatch wrestler.
But then just yeah. And then my last point, I just wrote green mist in capital letters and exclamation points, because that's one of the things I remember from Quang is the green mist, and I'm wondering, was this the start of it? He gets green misted in the face. Did he think that was cool? I'm gonna take that for myself, or is that just something everyone did at the
Well, I
time? I
mean,
don't know.
because of the dodgy quality in camera angles, and because the commentating was in Spanish, I have no idea who that was.
Yeah,
It looked like from the back Jimmy
who that
Snuka, but I
was,
don't think it was
or what
him.
it was about. Yeah,
Yeah, I have no idea who that was, but it was a nice little tie-in, which does take us very nicely onto our next match, where we're onto Quang now, taking on Bret Hart, because in 1994 on Monday Night Raw, because I figured if we're going to talk about Quang, and we're going to put him with anyone, we might as well put him with Bret Hart. Like, we might as well watch the match with
yeah.
Bret Hart. Easily at this time, the best wrestler in the WWF. What are
Yeah.
your general thoughts of Bret Hart before we get into this match?
Uh, Big fan of Bret Hart. Big fan of Bret Hart. I think he's great, and I think he does those fundamentals. His whole moniker, the
Yeah.
best there is, best there was, blah blah blah. That is certainly true. I think of like the fundamentals of
Mm.
wrestling, all of the like those beginning things that I think these new wrestlers learn, the bumps, the punches, the selling, the cat. He does all of that so well, like maybe better than
Yeah.
anyone. And so he can take a match like this, which even the WWF don't have faith in, because they promote another match over the top of it. You can take a match like this and still make it worth watching, and still make you believe that this is a fight. So I think, yeah, Bret Hart's
Yeah.
amazing.
I as a young man, did not enjoy the matches of Bret Hart. I found him
Mm,
quite boring as a character. The older I'm
mm,
getting, though, and the more I'm seeing of him, the more I'm realizing that that's not the case. And it's just that it's a very
yeah,
technical style, and he's a very, he's a pretty
yeah,
serious character, because he is, for him, it's sport. It's, I am a wrestler. And I think for kids, it's not
yeah,
the most exciting character, especially when I was growing up, I'm watching the likes of Rey Mysterio and Jeff Hardy and Kane and all these big, larger than life characters.
yeah,
Going back and watching Bret, he kind of seems stale by comparison. But the older I'm getting, the more I'm realizing that's just not right. And what you've said there sums it up quite nicely. So we get into this match. Quang doesn't get an entrance, so we don't get to see what he's all about in terms of the garb. I'm assuming by the time this match rolled around, he was firmly placed in kind of jobber to the stars territory.
Yeah.
Jumps Brett in the ring after he gives his sunglasses to the kid in the front row. So instantly getting hit with the booze there. That's just not what you do. This match is a very standard match. It's a lot of, big powerhouse moves until Brett takes over. I love that Vince on commentary keeps saying like, "Oh, this martial arts style," and I'm like, apart from a lovely kick and a lovely set of kicks, there's a wonderful one where they come back from commercial break and he just like runs at Brett in the corner, hits him with a crescent kick so hard he throws himself over the top rope in doing it.
That was a thing of
I like that.
beauty, that one. I was like, it was a
absolutely
chef's kiss moment there.
And you can tell because on the outside of the ring he just went. It's like, yeah, you're feeling it, man. You're feeling it.
And pose.
Yeah. There's a moment in this match where Brett spits at Quang's manager, and it's disgusting. And I don't know if that's just because it's 2021 and like germs, but like it's a proper like white gobber. It's disgusting. Don't spit, kids. Don't spit. It's gross. Yeah. This is it's a pretty back and forth match. It's just kind of Brett catching out Quang throughout, and then eventually slaps on the sharpshooter. Gets a tap out victory. Does actually get a tap out, even though Quang just kind of goes boop, 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 on the mat. Like he's not really tapping out. He's just waiting at a desk, just tapping away. Yeah. What did you think of this match?
Well, again, another really strong aesthetic. I mean, early '90s WWE is a whole vibe. You look in the crowd. You got the grannies, the kids. You got the turquoise all-in-one like power suits. You got the tie-dye. It's a whole thing altogether. I actually think Bret Hart, really stands out. Actually, they had a lot of characters like Quang, these odd, larger-than-life characters, I guess, really one-dimensional. Bret Hart comes out. He seems like a dude. He seems like an angry dude, which is. That was
at least 3 dimensions.
Every time he does something in Jordan's. But Bret Hart comes out and he feels like a sort of angry dude that's just sort of come out and he's unhappy for some reason. We don't know why. He's spitting and that's like and that's and he's the babyface. So I think Bret Hart really ahead of his time as well. But we're not talking about Bret Hart. Yeah, that's what I wrote. I said spinning kick was great. Oh, he does a lot of big guy stuff. And one of the things is these big gestures before a move. So it's like, down these like big wide gestures that you associate with people like Vader and things
and he's
like
not
that
big. Like he ain't Vader big. He's a big dude, but he's not Vader big.
Now is he fat?
Is that the technical term? Is he fat?
Yeah, I couldn't. It's one of those people you can't work it out. Like, is he? Do you think if you saw this dude in the street, you'd be like,
he's a big dude,
a fat dude, or do you think you'd be like, oh, that's a guy who could chop some trees?
I mean, tough to say. I wouldn't want to pick a fight with him. He looks like one of these deceptively hard lads, like almost like a Kevin Owens today.
I was just going to ask you, like, comparing those two, like, what do you think they're of a similar weight?
I think they're almost definitely. Give me 2 seconds, and I will find out how much each of these lads weigh.
Right. Well, you look that up. Yeah, because I was gonna say both of those guys are like they're obviously overweight. Although Kevin Owens has lost quite a bit of weight recently. I've noticed he's looking a lot trimmer.
According to Google,
But both
Savio Vega is
extremely athletic.
117 kilograms and Kevin Owens is
Yeah.
121 kilograms. But I don't think that
All
that's the
right.
case
So they're in
anymore.
the. Yeah, a lot of those weights are lies. They're just
Yes.
pure lies. But even so, if
What
let's
is this
assume that
clamp?
they're all. Oh, sorry.
Just start waving around a fucking clamp.
I was just.
I tell you, the production on this show's gone to crap. You haven't even lit one of your candles in the background. This is other side. Come on, mate.
Oh.
Sort it out.
It was on my desk and I just started playing with it. I didn't realize
This is why no one's watching.
I didn't realize that I was gesturing with it. Yeah. Clamp. Yeah.
Anyway.
What was I saying? Kevin Owens. Oh yeah, both bigger guys, both just really athletic. For their size, I think that's all I was saying. I think that's what I've got
I think as well. I will say, I think the Savio Vega puts his all into this character. Like he's really committed to the cause of Kwang. Because this is clearly, and I know that this is in like the early 90s where, we've also got a Samoan playing Japanese sumo wrestler, and you've got Rikishi who's portraying the Sultan, and we've got a lot of these. What's happening there? You just thinking about clamps? Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna finish my point. You've got a lot of these kind of disregarding of ethnicities. Very clearly, Savio Vega is not Japanese. Stop yourself. Do you need to walk it off? Don't. We're live. Okay. Puts us all into it. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Let's move swiftly on. Oh,
just before we move on, I'll make this point, and that might get me out of this laughing fit that I'm in. The talking over they get Owen Hart on the cellular phone, and they're bigging up his match with Bret Hart, which I think is going to be at WrestleMania.
It's either WrestleMania or SummerSlam. They have both.
It's at a pay per view. It's at a pay per view, and it's for SummerSlam, the title. And they're advertising this SummerSlam match, which is Bret Hart and Owen Hart for the title, whilst Kwang is in the process of trying to win the title.
I don't think it's on the line in this match. I think it's just to put him in contention. And I'm wrong. Right. It's the WrestleMania Revenge Tour that they're going on. So this isn't even televised, what they're talking about. This is just to hype the tour.
I don't know, but it's like talking ahead, like talking over the match kind of thing, or it's like, this, like, we don't care about this. This is the thing you want to be caring about, and it's relevant because they do the same thing in the next match.
The next match, the last match we're going to talk about today is, we're now in full Savio Vega character, taking on $1 Million champion Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 12. This is the WrestleMania debut for both of these men. And there's lots of different matches we could have talked about in this rivalry. I know very famously they had a Caribbean strap match at In Your House. I know that that's supposed to be like their I think like their best match. But I want to talk about the WrestleMania one because it's WrestleMania week and I'm in the mood to watch some WrestleMania. First of all, $1 Million Stone Cold Steve Austin. Weird. Really weird.
Yeah.
Comes out with the wrong music to very little ovation from the crowd with the $1 Million title. It's everything's there, but none of it is there.
Everything's there.
Very, very strange. And then we get a promo from Savio Vega before the match starts, which I was not expecting. And man, he is hyped in this promo. He is.
I missed that. I guess where I clicked on the network, it didn't show me that.
I watched this on YouTube. They uploaded it for Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because Savio Vega is kind of credited as being a big part of getting Stone Cold to where Stone Cold got to. He was one of the first big feuds that really put Stone Cold on the map. In fact, he's the first person to ever have taken a stunner. Was from Savio Vega, was the first one to take it. So really kind of getting into that character. He cuts a promo. He's very hyped. He wants Austin. He's all bug-eyed and like, he's also really, he's like, this is my dream come true. I'm here. I'm a WrestleMania. So we're at this point at WrestleMania 12 when we're now an established thing. That it's like, as a wrestler, you want to be at WrestleMania. So he just comes running straight down to the ring. Loved his theme song. Fun little salsa number. Was digging that. Was feeling it. And we are just straight in. It's just brawling straight from the off. What did you think about starting so high energy?
Yeah, it was definitely like a really intense start to the match, and that is one of the things that Stone Cold is known for, is that intensity. And I think Savio Vega just matches him, like he's right there with him. I didn't see the promo at the beginning, but it makes sense. I've written here, looks a state. Like I think it was the Nation of Domination gear. I think it just looks so bad. And I think so did Kwang. I think the guy got a bit of a raw deal at WWE. Like they just dressed him like Kwang looks a little bit like Vader, but Vader has got his own sort of aesthetic going on. You know what I mean? I've said the word aesthetic so many times in this podcast, but Vader's got his own look there, and it's kind of iconic. But like, I think maybe he was done dirty by these various gear that they picked out.
Costume designers haven't done well. No, this isn't quite Nation of Domination. There's more orange tones in that. I think this is kind of representative of the Puerto Rican flag, whereas Nation of Domination, it's a bit more kind of African inspired. But yeah, no, he was done dirty, and I think part of that was down to the fact that this is before you could get away with wrestling in a t-shirt, essentially. And he doesn't have the greatest physique. Now, again, he can work, he can move, he's fast, he's really athletic for a bigger dude. But looks wise in terms of like his physical shape, it's not in this is a WrestleMania especially where they're still coming to terms with the fact their wrestlers are getting a little bit smaller. They've got Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in the main event of this WrestleMania, but you've still got the likes of The Undertaker and Diesel hanging around, which is, their kind of optimum. This is what we want from a wrestler. And Savio Vega just definitely didn't fit that mold, but he really could move, and he keeps up with Austin brilliantly in this. Again, as I said, kind of straight into it. We get this weird spot, and this kind of goes to how the character wasn't quite there yet, because we get this bizarre pinfall spot where they do the rolling pin. I've got you in a schoolboy, you got me in a schoolboy, I've got you in this, I got you in that, which I'm not a fan of at the best of times, but these are the two guys that should not be doing this. This is like two young cruiserweights that do this, not these two lads.
I'm so glad that you brought this up. Can we just take a brief aside to discuss the pin spot?
Let's talk about the pin spot.
Why it should be abandoned from wrestling. Why no one should ever do a pin spot again. Like, it's so crap. Like, if the goal of wrestling is to make the audience believe that two people are in a fight, then the pin spot is the complete antithesis to that. It's like some weird dance. And like you said, this is a particularly bad one, but I don't believe the pin spot has a place in any wrestling, and it needs to stop now.
Just needs to go. I
Yeah.
I
How do you feel about the pin spot?
it's fun. My issue with the pin spot is, and I think this is my feelings towards a lot of these type of things, it needs to work at least once. I need to see one person win from doing the pin spot. Like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay, cool. Just once. Just one person has to take that.
Well, I think it may have worked.
I'm sure
in the
it
past.
has.
I'm sure someone will be able to find an example of someone winning through a pin spot. But it's still.
But there's one part of it especially where you have to do where they do a bridge. So it's they're both flat and the one on the bottom has to lift up. And it's really impressive when you can do that. And you're supposed to lift up and then do the spin around and you do the backslide pin. And you can see them in position for it. And you're looking at Savio and you're like, nah, mate, it's not happening. And it doesn't happen. He just kind of rolls him to the side and then gets up and goes into it. So I think it has its place, mainly in kind of really fast-paced cruiserweight matches or luchador stuff. But definitely not with these two lads. This was like watching buddy Drew and Bobby Lashley whip it out on Sunday. Like that was kind of.
I mean, you're right. It's. I guess it's better with kind of two sort of fast cruiserweight guys. But it's still awful. I hate it. You shouldn't, unless you're doing something really new and creative. And I feel like it's quite common these days, especially amongst the women. The women do a lot of pin spots, and I hate it. And I just think it needs to die.
Just as
that's my two
cents. Not controversial, devil's advocate. I do think it's really good crowd engagement as well. Which is ultimately what you want to do. It's a good, 1, 2, 1. But again, I don't think this should be. No one in a main event, caliber match on the card should be doing this. And especially not when we started so hot in this match, so fired up and, he wanted to get at Austin. Don't do the really choreographed pin spot. It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah. This match starts super intense, and I'm like, all right, I'm into this. I can buy into this, and it kind of fizzles, and that culminates in a really, I'm going to say, unusual finish that I've never seen before. What happens is Stone Cold takes out Savio Vega with the $1 million belt, and the referee is unconscious. He Quang spin kicked
Savio spin kicked, and not Quang. Come on.
Sorry,
hit him with a beautiful crescent spinning kick.
And then,
as always,
the referee melts, and then Stone Cold, having been a bad lad and having knocked Savio out with the belt, then pretends that he didn't do that. Because he's unconscious, he's knocked out, and then he pretends to sort of put a sleeper hold on him. And then the referee comes to, and then he puts the arm, and then he's still pretending, and it's as if, he's put this sleeper hold on, and he's passed out because of it. I don't think I've ever seen that finish before, so I appreciate it.
It was interesting, and first of all, the $1 million title looks like one of the worst belts to get hit with. It looks like it must hurt so bad. All those tiny little diamonds in there. Ooh, that does not look pleasant. But it does lead to one of my going off one of your most hated spots in wrestling. Goes to one of my favorite spots in wrestling, which is the arm. The arm. And it's gone now because it's not realistic. So now it's they take the UFC approach where they're like, if he's out, he's out. Now, give me a 1. Give me a 2. And then give me a no. Throw up a Quang. It's one of my favorite spots in wrestling. And much like my opinions on the pinfall spot, every now and again, it needs to hit the 3, and on this occasion it did.
I agree. I like it, and I like it because it's consistent. Because the method they have now, you said, they take the UFC angle, but they do sometimes when they feel like it. Them.
Yeah.
When it suits them, it's just not consistent. I think we knew where we stood with the 1, 2, 3. Now they just change the rules depending on what they want the outcome for the match to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, it's a shame. I liked knowing where I stood. I liked it being traditional. Cool. So that kind of concludes the matches, the match portion of the show. Overall, what were your thoughts on Savio Vega? And essentially, why do you think he didn't? Because he won no titles in WWF. He didn't win the IC, didn't win the tag team, wasn't around long enough to be a hardcore champion. Why do you think that was, Mr. Morgan?
Well, I think it's quite clear why it was. And I think he came to WWE at the lowest when they were churning out these awful characters who were either super cartoonish and weird, and obviously like Kwang, WWE obviously didn't have faith in Kwang. It's kind of a gimmick that they gave out, like, yeah, that'll work, and then really secretly knew that it was no good, and that's why he's losing to all of these big names. And the Savio Vega thing just doesn't have an identity. He's got terrible gear. And that is so much a part of, like, it might be more than 50% of wrestling, is getting over with the crowd, being a unique, interesting character. And listen, the dude obviously had intensity. We saw it in that Stone Cold match. We saw it in that first, like, hardcore match. Like, he was in there. He was intense. You know, he looks like a guy who wants to win a fight. But unfortunately, when you're working for a company like WWF, there's a lot of shit that you've got to do with the stuff that you're given. And now listen, like, the kind of god tier wrestlers can take shit and turn it into magic, but not everyone can do that. And unfortunately, he's been given kind of crap to work with, and he's been fed to these sort of big names. Except that, you know, solid wrestler, has the intensity, had it in his locker, just never had that right look, really. Never had that right gimmick.
Yeah, and I think Savio definitely falls under that kind of journeyman category. That he comes in and he helped a lot of people. Like, he really helped the careers of Razor Ramon to take it from the cartoony gimmick into something a bit more serious. Obviously helped out Austin. Really helped get the Nation Domination on track, and was very pivotal at the time with the whole faction warfare that you had, DOA and stuff like that. Funny enough, he gets brought in as a replacement for Shawn Michaels on a tag team. I think it was like Austin, Bulldog, and Shawn were going to be on a team, and he got brought in as a replacement for Shawn. That was his like first time on that, and he came out with I believe it was a barbed wire bat. First time barbed wire had ever been shown in like WWF programming, that someone would come out with that as a nod to his Puerto Rican roots. So it's weird how, if you look at a lot of the kind of people that would go on to become stars in the Attitude Era, Goldust, The Rock, Austin, he had quite a big part to play in their early careers. And that kind of seemed to be his job, was to help others kind of get to that stardom stage at the expense of his own career, or at the expense of his own climb up to the main event. And I think, again, from what I've seen, he's still wrestling today. Still going. As I said, in MLW. Obviously at a much more reduced capacity. But, you know, so I can only assume from everything that I've seen of him, from interviews I've seen, that he's kind of cool with the role that he had to play. Which is good, because I think he is a very good wrestler. He seems like a very safe wrestler, just a good pair of hands to have around, someone you definitely want on your roster. I think if he'd been around for another few years, he would have been in that kind of hardcore division when it kind of first started up, before it got too cartoony. I think he definitely would have hung around there. And, you know, I think him working as a wrestling trainer now as well, is the perfect place for him, because I think he obviously shows that he's got a lot to kind of teach in these matches. That's what I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think we're gonna wrap it up there. Before we do, again on tomorrow we are going to be streaming at 8 p.m. British Standard Time or British Summer Time. Is it Standard Time or Summertime? I don't know. I can't remember.
Standard.
I don't know. 8 p.m. UK time. If you don't know what that is, Google it. Talking about NXT Stand and Deliver. Then on Sunday, same time, talking about WrestleMania Night 1. Monday, talking about WrestleMania Night 2. As far as next week, next Thursday's show, Dan, who are we going to be talking about, bud?
Well, listen. I think as this show has gone on, the definition of what this show is sort of seems to be changing week by week.
If you say so.
And in my head now, what this show is where we spotlight wrestlers that we feel sort of went under the radar a bit and are maybe underappreciated.
I feel like you're about to pick a WWF champion, and I'm not okay with that.
Sort of. The thing is, here's what I wanted to do, right? I wanted to pick a women's wrestler.
Okay.
Because we haven't talked about a woman yet. And this woman that I've chosen was a women's champion. But I still feel like does not get the respect that she deserves. And I think there's a lot we could talk about like women on the card at the time and what they were striving for and trying to make a place for wrestling as opposed to like mud fights and cat suits.
So we're talking about the cat.
No, we're talking about Victoria.
She was women's chat, and I know that because she won it at the first ever pay-per-view I watched, Survivor Series 2002 against Trish Stratus.
All right. So I didn't tell you beforehand in case you told me we couldn't do it.
I mean, I feel like I could still tell you that, but then it would just be awkward. No one watching that would...
Because here's the thing. Because here's the thing as well. I've also picked the matches.
Oh, well, damn.
Already. And I'm going to tell you now. So if you want to watch them at home for next week, anyone watching this, they can watch the matches along with us, and then they can join in the discussion next week. So, Victoria versus Trish Stratus.
Survivor Series 2002. What? On Raw? Survivor Series 2002, sir.
Survivor Series 2002. Victoria versus Trish versus
WrestleMania.
Jazz at WrestleMania. And then Victoria, who was Tara at the time, against Mickie James in TNA in a steel cage match.
We're going to TNA, folks. I'm excited because we're going to TNA.
So there was right. So this is what I'm saying. First woman, TNA, right, which I wanted to get there as well. Yeah, she was champion, but she's champion at a time where it just was. I mean, that belt.
The chances of it headlining WrestleMania were slim. All right, I'm not happy with it, but I really like Victoria, so I'm accept it. Is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna accept it. We're gonna watch it. We're gonna have a good old time. Oh, and just like that, before we wrap up, Dan from Eve has appeared in the chats magically just as we're wrapping up and said, "So did you like Savio?" We missed you, mate. Yeah, we did like Savio. He's great. He just was never going to be WWF champion. That was our summary. Really great. Definitely not champ. Bad timing on his part. We did talk about Puerto Rico. You'd have been angry. Next week, we're talking about Victoria. I hope that you're going to be in the comments because I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say about her career. I know that you know Victoria, so yeah, I'm excited for that one. we're going to wrap it up now because we've got a really, really busy week. Guys, enjoy WrestleMania week for those in the UK and Europe. Stay awake and try your best. And until tomorrow, we'll see you then.